Great. I'm seeing there's so many people joining in, and I'm so happy to see you all. So nice to see your faces also, and just to be in this event that is celebrating women also. I think it would be great if it was Women's Month every month. And I'm really, really excited to be having this event. And I think one thing that we want to focus on in this event also is that it's a celebration for us, you know, so don't take anything too seriously. We're really happy to hear your thoughts and like what you're thinking, and we just want to create an environment where everybody is enjoying this and having a good discussion and being able to enjoy women, because obviously women run the world. So as we get started, I just want to, of course, welcome you all. So this is an event that is hosted by the Africa Center Hong Kong. And for those of you who don't know the Africa Center Hong Kong, we are a space, a physical space that's based in Jordan. And we are an organization basically that's really interested in connecting communities, especially when it has to do with the African community here in Hong Kong. And we have several missions. The first is connecting communities, something like what we're doing here. We have people who are logging in from Australia, from Zimbabwe, from Hong Kong. That's something that's really important to us. We also have the mission of rebranding Blackness. So for us, rebranding Blackness is important, especially in the Asian context where Blackness is often maybe associated with negative connotations, but we're here to show this positivity and to celebrate Blackness. And thirdly, our mission is also on Black consciousness, which is just also raising the consciousness within our own Black community, knowing about our own histories, knowing about our own ideologies, knowing about the work that each of us are doing in this community. So that's just a little bit about the Africa Center, and you can always find out more about that on our website. Today, as I said, we're here to celebrate International Women's Day and International Women's History Month. And we will be doing that through different ways. So firstly, we are going to have some readings that will be happening, and then we're going to have a panel discussion and some performances. And I'm really excited to be here and sharing this space with all of you today. So starting off, we're going to have some readings from the African Spear magazine. The African Spear magazine is a magazine that is published by the Africa Center once every month. And basically we have different people, different contributors who write for the African Spear magazine, usually people with some sort of African heritage based here in Hong Kong. And so we have three lovely readers for us today, Daniela, Jessie, and Imo. And they will be doing little introductions of themselves and then just going straight into the readings. They will be reading some excerpts of their articles that they wrote for the African Spear magazine. So we'll be starting off with Daniela, who's also a committed member to the book club at the center and always there supporting the work of the center. So Daniela, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mareika. Thank you, everyone, and Africa Center for the opportunity to read. I'm just going to read a bit of the piece I wrote for the Womanhood edition of African Spear, and it is called The Hair Station. Hair Station complete, comb, blue grease, baubles, clips, and my fluffy and pray this time my head doesn't bounce back and forth like a yo-yo. I always have tangles, but we washed with a new detangling deep conditioner, so I think I'll be okay. Today, mommy's giving me Afro puffs. I love when I have Afro puffs because they make me think of mummies with babies in their tummies, and I dream about what I want to be when I grow up. When I grow up with my Afro puffs, I know just what I'll be to catch babies. Pour water, hold hands, buy booties and hats. I'll help these mums prepare. I'll count the days and sing words of praise and treat these mums with care. Yep, Yep, another style. I do my prance dance to my pillow. Jiggy, jiggy, dance, dance, jiggy, jiggy, dance. My older sister is stylishing in her new braids, so I ask mommy to give me the same, but she says she doesn't know. With her hands in my hair, I feel her part and section. I feel the grease, dab, dab, smear. I'm getting them. I'm getting Fulani braids. If I have Fulani braids, I'll be a mathematician studying nature. Patterns in ice to shells in the sea will guide me from oceans to glaciers. My braids are the reason I love patterns so, and nature has much to explore. I'll study leaves and trees and flowers and bees and sell my notes in a bookstore. Ooh, who's that I see in the mirror? Me. My body is changing. My chest is growing. I don't think I should use baubles anymore. Those are for little girls. So, what style should I ask for now? Something that makes it look like I have beautiful peaks and valleys on my head to travel and conquer. Bantu knots. When I have my hair in Bantu knots, I'll grow to be a mountaineer. Everest, K2, Kilimanjaro, or Fuji, all will be scaled without fear. My name in the papers and top magazines for having a smile on each climb. I'll greet all I meet with a mood so upbeat, we'll dance on the peaks double time. Oh my, oh dear. It's happened. I've blossomed. I'm not a little girl anymore. When I look around, I catch big eyes looking me up and down like I'm a chocolate fountain. I keep my head up and walk past those dumb boys as if they don't exist. Mom says not to mind them and to keep my focus on what's most important. I think she's the greatest in the whole world because she makes me feel like royalty. But now when I get the pillow, she gives this big sigh and says she can't sit and do my hair for as long as she used to. So what am I supposed to do? Let's focus on twists, not makeup or hips, and see what my mom can pull through. Her hands, as of late, are beginning to shake. If I don't care for her, then who? With a head full of twists, I know what I'll be. A lawyer who works for the court. I'll give my address and defense to the jury. Innocent ones I'll support. I want to say thank you once again. And if you'd like to find out what happens next in the hair story, please get your copy of the Womanhood edition of African Spear. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you so much for that reading. And I think I really love how you're just talking about these different hairstyles, and I really could relate to it. And it's really nice actually to hear you reading it, because I think usually I see your articles in the written form, and so I'm not seeing you reading them, but it's been really exciting also to just experience you reading them. Thank you so much for that reading, Daniela.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to a reading by Jessie. So we will just change the...
Hello.
Great. So Jessie is also a columnist for the African Spear. She writes columns for the African Spear. She will be doing the reading for us. Yeah, the floor is yours, Jessie.
I will be doing my reading on the global health. So just an overview. It's about migrant domestic workers. So I'm here. With growing demand for domestic labor in the Gulf region, millions of women and men from sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia migrate to Southwest Asia for employment. It is not uncommon for single households to employ several types of domestic workers, ranging from cleaning, cooking, driving, and to gardening. Within the Gulf region, the legal status of migrant workers is tied to the kafala system. Kafala is a migration management policy that limits the citizenship rights of the migrant workers, as they are legally tied to an individual employer for the duration of their employment. The system gives sponsors legal abilities to assert control over their workers and overall create a relationship dynamic where the migrant is dependent on their employers. For example, migrant workers are required to seek permission from their employer to either change jobs, quit, or leave the country. If the worker were to leave a job without permission, they could risk having their residence visa canceled and turning into an illegal resident of the country. The system has caused a balance between employers and migrant workers, particularly for low-colored workers where they are placed under blatant exploitation and racism structured by this system. A case where this system showed great consequences was when 21-year-old Lisa Tufa, an Ethiopian domestic worker in Lebanon, tried to flee her employer's home with no other alternative than to jump from the balcony, sustaining multiple injuries from the fall. Whilst in Kuwait, it was uncovered that residents sold and bought domestic workers on a popular commodity app called For Sale, and that in recent scandal brought to light, Facebook and Instagram are platforms still being used as tools for trading maids in the Gulf region. Nevertheless, this has not deterred migration to the region for work. For women coming from sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, this offers an opportunity to improve their livelihood and become economically independent to better their lives and help their family relatives. A research found that East and West Africa returnees who were able to receive their complete wage in a timely order were regularly successful with sending remittance back home. This money would be used by their families in their countries of origin to pay for expenses such as rent, utilities, school fees, and medical care. Some women were able to save a lot of money and would inject some into property consisting of land and rental houses, or even business ventures while still situated abroad. These investments have proved to be a major economic boost for these migrant women upon their return home. However, the picture isn't always glossy. Upon migrants' return home, as sometimes they face a myriad of challenges ranging from illness, chronic disease, financial difficulties, and community backlash. Faced with societal and family pressure, these women are often expected to have stayed longer at the receiving country to send more money back home in instances of contracts ending prematurely. In the past, some countries have imposed bans on migration to Southwest Asia region. For instance, Uganda's 2016 ban was short-lived after the government recognized that migration to the region had continued through illicit travel channels. While some countries have made the effort of creating bilateral agreements with Southwest Asian countries, for these agreements, nationality does come into play, as sending countries from Southeast Asia have been in the domestic worker market since the 1970s, henceforth giving them higher bargaining power when compared to sub-Saharan countries. For instance, Ugandan nationals in Saudi Arabia are given 200 USD, while their Filipino counterparts receive 400 USD. So that was just a small part of the article, but if you want to know more about it, like Daniela said, you can try purchasing a copy, and yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessie. And I guess what I really like, Jessie, every time you always really bring in that journalistic approach when you're writing your articles. So you're really involved in like looking into these situations and these scenarios, even if it's something that's removed from your context, for example, it's always really well researched. And I really enjoy reading those articles because for me, they're informative and quite a different style if you compare it like even to Daniela's. So Daniela's a different style and you're very much on the journalistic side. So we have one more reading that we will be listening to, and that will be a reading that Emo will be doing for us. So Emo, the floor is yours.
Okay, I've just unmuted myself. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Imo, and I'm going to be reading an article that I wrote for the womanhood issue of African Sphere. So this is called Amazing Grace, and it's dedicated to my mum, who is a wonderful Nigerian woman, lives in London, whom I miss very, very much. So this is dedicated to her. Before Selena Godin, Grace taught me that pessimism is for lightweights. I grew up on stories that are at their core aim to equip the listener with the tools and behaviors necessary to showcase acts of courage and dogged resistance. These stories were also tempered with cheerful tales of family, community, and compassion. These are the tenets of grace. It is no surprise then that from a young age, I learnt first and foremost that self-compassion can be its own resilient armor in a world where women, Black women in particular, are expected to exude unyielding strength and show steely resolve in all ways, always. Grace by name and gracious in nature, I have always been encouraged by my own mother to be good to myself, to remain faithful that everything will eventually work out. Even when you can only see your hands in front of you, whilst everything else is swallowed in darkness, keep the faith and exercise grace. This was my first education on womanhood. So it's commonly recounted that it takes a village to raise a child, but I've subscribed to the belief that it takes a legion of surrogate mothers to raise a child that will later become a formidable adult. An adult that is resilient and adaptable to all the features of a complex world. For me, this is the real essence of womanhood. This was my second lesson. So womanhood for me should be centered on building community and creating meaningful connections. It should serve to strengthen and unite rather than create discord. It should be metered by the belief that everything comes into existence through a crescendo of interconnections. So in the process of digging up the bones of my deepest values to explore womanhood and what it means to me, I've come to recognize that I am not the first, nor will I be the last to experience the throes of womanhood and all that comes with being a woman. So it's no wonder that my own relationship with my mother and my tenacious community of surrogate mothers greatly impacts my ability to intuitively empathize with all of my experiences, past and present, as a woman, a Black woman, born to the most indomitable Nigerian woman. So when the chorus of characters within me, loud and thunderous in their discomfort, frustrated in their loneliness, and roaring in their worry, cloud over my sky and alter my mood, I am reminded of the deep and ancestral community connections that I have at my disposal. I am grateful for them, and I'm also grateful to them for their ability to temper the discontented and scattered parts of myself, whose take on the world generally comes from a place full of lots of noise and expectations of a glim and a just world. So drawing power from vulnerability and alchemizing uncertainty into ammunition, into action, is my superpower. And in these moments, I'm reminded of Grace, my mum, and I show myself some too. Shifting from rumination into action and application is an indomitable trait after all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imo, for that reading. And I was really inspired by it because I do think that a lot of times we really are, there's really this army of women around us. That's how I see it. And that's kind of what you're describing in your text, and about how, yeah, you know, there's so much that's around that, so much love that's around that, so much community that's around us, and in a way that really gets us through a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of trials, a lot of barriers. So I think it was also just very lovely to just hear that, and for us to know that these things, that we have the support, especially on a day like this, where we're seeking also to actively celebrate women and celebrate the achievements of women in our lives and things like that. Great, thank you so much, Imo, for that. Let me just, so we will be moving on to the next session, to the next section. And for the next section, we are just going to, before we start into the panel discussion, we will give everybody a little bit of a chance to take a break, and then we'll jump into the panel discussion. But during the break, we will also have some chance to tell you a bit more about the programs that we're doing at the Africa Center. So feel free also to just also stay and watch some of the videos that Chihiro will be showing for us. And then we're going to jump right into the panel discussion that I know you're all waiting for. So yes, we will have a little bit of a break until exactly 4 o'clock, and then we'll come back into it and start the discussion round. Great.
I'm Chihiro, and I'm Arts Project Manager at Africa Center Hong Kong. Do you know what's happening on 18th March this year? Yes, Africa Center will kickstart its virtual spring camp for all the kids who have the new summer holiday. On Tuesdays, we have arts and crafts. On Wednesdays, we have virtual travels. And on Fridays, we have cooking and baking, starting from March 18th. And today I want to introduce what we'll be doing in the Arts and Crafts Workshop. The Arts and Crafts Workshop will cultivate the creativity of the children, and at the same time, the children will have the opportunity to learn about different African arts. On 22nd of March, we'll learn about the Bele House paintings from the Southern Africa. We'll design our own postcards, and at the same time, learn about how it symbolizes the resilience of the community. For example, like this and this. Come and join us. 29th March, it's the day we learn about Afro hair. So the hair is a big thing in Africa, and hair is something that the African people are proud of. That's why we should learn about its rich history. Don't worry, even if you don't have a long hair or Afro-textured hair, you can still join this workshop. In the third session, we'll be learning about the African beads culture. These accessories in Africa are oftentimes a symbol of womanhood, fertility, and spirituality. And it's used in a variety of rites and customs. We'll be focusing on the waist beads in Ghana, West Africa, and we'll make a small beads accessory in this session. Last but not least, on 12th of April, we'll be learning about different kinds of African fabrics, as well as their significance in the cultures that created them. African fabrics also have multiple uses, so we'll explore it in this hands-on workshop. All the materials will be delivered to you.
Wow. Come and join us.
Yep, please come and join us. So the next one is about the virtual travel.
My name is Mareika, and I will be in charge of the virtual travel tours that we will be hosting as part of the spring camp. So we are inviting you to join us in these virtual travels where we will discover the African continent. We will go from Southern Africa and Zambia to Eastern Africa and Ethiopia, North Africa and Egypt, and West Africa and Ghana. In all of these places, we'll be finding out different things about the people and the culture, and also having a special focus on the lives of children in this place so that we can be able to get to know people in this area better. We will also be doing this in an attempt to foster the spirit of global citizenship. It has been a very hard time and people haven't been able to travel in this way, and so we would be excited to be able to offer you these tours where you can still have a chance to be able to see the world. In addition to this, for every session that we will have special souvenirs that will be coming from whichever country we will be traveling to. These will be sent to you via post here in Hong Kong or wherever you are, so that you can also have an aspect and a feel of the country right in your home. We would be excited for you to join us in these virtual travels.
Right. And the last one is cooking. Ooh.
What we're cooking today is one example of the different dishes that we'll be cooking during this workshop. These particular dishes, plantain and beans. During the course of this virtual cooking and baking workshop, we will be traveling across Africa to learn different techniques of how different dishes and snacks are made. From learning how to cook and bake Nigerian and South African snacks and drinks, to cooking delicious vegetarian dishes from Ethiopia to Zimbabwe. You will be connected with different cultures and regions across Africa. This African cooking and baking workshop is a fun way to learn African indigenous cooking stories, food culture, and healthy lifestyle. Please join our virtual cooking workshop to investigate different cultures and connect with Mother Africa.
This video makes me hungry. All right, so back to you, Mareika.
Great. Yes, and so for the part that we've been waiting for and what we really came here to do, we will be starting off with the panel discussion now. And so we have some very wonderful guests who are joining us for this panel discussion. So I will just also introduce you to the guests and then we'll get started. So before I introduce you to the guests, I want to let you know that the topic we'll be speaking on today is break the bias, right? And so sometimes I think we're always thinking of this issue of, you know, the gender inequalities, there's gender bias, and you need to break the bias, right? And I think that you'll see today also, I guess, as the conversation progresses, how each of these women are breaking the bias in their respective fields of work, but also you'll notice that maybe we're not speaking specifically on that. And I think that what I want to highlight with that is just, you know, us being in this space, taking up this space is already kind of breaking the bias, you know, because in a lot of cases, people don't even want to be hearing women speak. And especially if it's going to be Black women, it's going to be African women, you know, you even have even more of challenges that come to that. So it's just lovely also to just be in this place where we can just chat to each other about these different topics. So I think, Chiro, can you just help me with spotlighting everybody? Great. So we will start off with Teresa. So Teresa Lemaire, she is an entrepreneur and a people leader with global experience in asset management. She business strategy and operations and technology related innovation for business. In addition to her current role as a leader in a manufacturing facility, she leads the team at the Ghana Election Promises and Handy Trade Ghana Limited. Teresa currently lives and works in Australia. So welcome, Teresa, to the panel. I'll just do an introduction of each of our panelists and then we'll move on. Yes. Next person who I'll introduce to you is Chipili Mwaba Moono. She is a Zambian-born cross-cultural developmental psychologist and postgrad student here in Hong Kong. Her areas of interest include culturally appropriate developmental assessment, African and world theatre, and also interactive learning. She is also a singer, an author, a failed poet, a farmer, and an aspiring polyglot. I think we need to go into that failed poet later on in the discussion, Moono. Then we have Rungano, Nyamayedenga. Oh, she just disappeared. So let me just introduce Canélia to you first. We have Canélia, who is African Caribbean, born French, based in Hong Kong, so very, very international. She's passionate about technology, sustainability, and more specifically in fashion, where she has built her career. She's currently working at the Sustainable Apparel Coalition for the APAC region. She's also part of Ladies Who Tech in Hong Kong. And beyond that, beyond work, Canélia enjoys history, cooking, and biking. Yes. And then our last panelist, who we seem to have just lost for a second there, but I will just introduce you to her. I'm sure she'll rejoin us in a second, is Rungano Nyamayedenga. She is living and working in Zimbabwe. Rungano has studied women and gender studies. She has a keen interest in gender analysis and human-centered design. Moreover, she's a creative director of Paper Pieces, which is a sustainable jewelry brand. Beyond this work, she also enjoys writing, event planning, and wants to be that chef that doesn't cook. So I am so excited to have you all on this panel today, because I think even from all of your bios, we see also that you're coming in from different fields, right? And there might be this question of, well, why did we invite you all to come in and speak on this panel when it's all coming in from different fields, and there seems to be confusion. But this is what we kind of wanted to show, is just also the diversity of the fields that women are working in, and also maybe to recognize that even if we're working in all of these different fields, there's a lot of things that brings us together, that gives us commonality and common ground to work on. So I want to start off with the first question, and maybe I'll just start off with Teresa, directing it at you. So what does International Women's Day really mean to you, and how do you maybe celebrate it?
So if every positive action that we took on this day was multiplied across the other 364 days in a year, think how much more of an impact we could have. So all the things we do this week, challenging gender roles at work, in the community, supporting women, mentoring people, calling trans women, if you see a woman trying to get her voice heard in a meeting, ask her opinion, all these rich conversations. Imagine if we did that every single day, and how much of an impact that would mean to me. And when I think of International Women's Day, we are setting a prototype of what our everyday should look like. That's why I enjoy this day.
Great, thank you so much. And I think that's exactly what we're saying, that this should be something that we're celebrating every day, and exactly as you said, there's so much work that we do get done in this month, but then sometimes it doesn't relate over. I'll ask Moono, what do you think of International Women's Day, and why is it important to you?
Well, for me, International Women's Day is important because it kind of tells me that it's okay to be me. Because I feel like, and a lot of times as a woman, being professional, it's like there are rules. One thing I was thinking to myself as I was processing this was that it's like femininity is a cloak I have to put on and take off. So there are instances when it should be, I should put it on, you're a woman now. And there are times where, because you're a woman, how could you? Oh, it's because you're a woman, that's why you're doing this. And I feel like having a day that commemorates women on an international level, looking at the different backgrounds and the diversity that we come from, we kind of tell ourselves that it's okay to be us. And our definition of who we are should not be related on, of course, we have the cultural norms that are sometimes not very supportive, or some male counterparts that are not very helpful, and sometimes our fellow females that are not so helpful. But it just kind of tells us that let's come together, support each other, and let us be us. And it's okay to be a woman,
Yes. Thank you so much, Moono, for that. And I think you're also highlighting a fact that, Women's Day in its essence, and when it started off very much as a grassroots movement, right? That was started by working class women and also women of color, right? And sometimes we forget that because now I guess, it's been taken up on an international scale, and also a lot of people, it's been commodified in a sense, people want to celebrate and things like that. So sometimes we forget where it's coming from, but exactly as you're saying, it's this really the celebration of ourselves and the people that we are.
Yes.
This is an important question, so I really want all of my panelists to be able to answer this question. So Canélia, please tell me what Women's Day means to you.
Sure. So as a French national, actually the emphasis during International Women's Day is that it's actually the Women's Rights Day. And so it's really putting the emphasis on really having this opportunity to check on the progress of gender equality and the progress on women's rights. And so that's what it always meant to me. I know that also coming from Cameroon is a celebration, as Chipili was saying, that basically we are women and we are us. We are worth celebrating. Since we don't necessarily have that space all the time, it's a good now it's a month, right? It's a good opportunity and platform to really show ourselves and say, like, we are here and we are deserving of rights, we are deserving to be ourselves, and we are deserving to really be present, and we matter. So that's what it means for me.
Great, yes, for sure. And I think especially coming from France, for example, which even in their, what do they have? Those 3 words, they have one of the words is brotherhood, right? And that's, I guess, so much, it's so exclusive. It's like, well, what about all of the women? What about sisterhood, right? So yes, I really like that. And I love the focus on rights also, because that is something that we cannot deny that our sisters in the past have really fought for and have really made active effort for us to be able to have and enjoy the rights that we are enjoying as we are in all these different contexts we find ourselves in. Rungano, so glad that you can come back. So we just were asking, because I just want to hear also from you that why is Women's Day, what does it mean to you, if anything?
Cool. Sorry, my phone decided that it needed to cool down, so it just but I'm happy that I'm back. And I think for me, International Women's Day is just a way to remember or like acknowledge all the work that women are doing. You learn so much about what has happened in the past and what women are currently doing. And for me, I think importantly this year was also just a reminder that, we shouldn't just celebrate ourselves on one day or in 1 month. It should be a continuous thing that we should always remember to do, because at the end of the day, right, if we don't do that for ourselves, no one else will. So it's a time where we remember the amount of power that we have. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I really appreciate the fact that we can come together and just reflect on all the things that we've done. So yeah, that's what Women's Day means to me.
Great, yeah. And I think it is really important also for us to be able to celebrate ourselves. And I think that's something that has come up in all of your answers, and I think sometimes we do feel the burden of the patriarchy. We do feel the burden of like being a woman and navigating these worlds and things like that. And we don't take time to celebrate really all of the things that we're doing amazingly as we are. Yes, so I've mentioned also, and in your bios, it's quite clear that you're all working in different fields, right? So I wanted to ask, especially this question to Canélia and Teresa, because I think maybe your environments are a bit more dominated by men, about how do you see any issues with gender in that field? And if so, how do you think these issues can start to get resolved? So maybe Canélia, I'll let you start on this one.
Sure. So mine is a bit twofold. One side is the fashion industry and the other side is more NGO sustainability based. So in the fashion industry, surprisingly enough, or not maybe, most of the workforce is women, especially in the manufacturing industry, but they are usually the ones that are like on the front line. They are the sewers, they are the cutters, they are the ones that really make the garments come to life. And they are often disregarded, very little rights. They are less paid, more vulnerable. And surprisingly enough, you have this huge workforce that is very women's based, even in brands. You have the designers, the product managers, they are most of the time women. But when you look at the top, it's usually a very male-driven industry. And so for me, I changed from, I used to work at Lacoste, so a big brand, to an NGO. And my goal to resolve those issues is really to standardize the industry as much as possible and giving the brands and the manufacturers framework to respect those workers, to make sure that they are heard and that they are actually respected, and make sure that it's standardized and that we don't have to deal with all of those tragedies that we usually see in this industry. And on the other hand, we have the NGO, again, very female driven, especially in the fashion world. And at the same time, you know, like it's not, we make this impact globally, but this is not very money driven, but it's our duty as NGO, female driven, to really inspire the change. Because we have that chance to have this experience and we know what it is to be a woman. We know what we need as workers. So that's my take on that.
Great, thank you for that. Yes, and I think it's great that you're also like really making a conscious decision in the work that you're doing to also try and stand for the rights of also women and also the people who are more or less the foot soldiers who are working in these fields. Thank you for that. Teresa, I'm really interested to hear from you.
Yeah, so I've ended up, whether by coincidence or design, in male-dominated industries. So my formal career, I started as an engineer, worked in mining, worked in manufacturing, and in IT and technology. All of that is male-dominated. And, you know, do I see any problems with gender equality? Yes, mainly with language and actions. So what people think translates to what they feel, and it translates to what they say or do. I had a look at the We Are Unity research on their website, and they're looking at the top listed companies on the Australian Stock Exchange. So the top 300, 83% of their annual reports use gender imbalanced language. And they're using male pronouns 3 times more than they use female pronouns. You know, they're using words like chairman about 6,700 times compared to 3 words of chairwoman. And it's kind of become like the norm in the everyday. I go to work, I'm in a meeting and someone's saying, oh yeah, and the guys and the boys who do this, well, there's more than just the boys and the guys. How can this be resolved? I just encourage everyone to call it out. You know, when such language and such actions, like the woman is the person to prepare the morning tea at work, please do call it out. And if you don't call it out, support those who do. Being the only woman in the room saying something about it and other women not saying anything can be quite demoralizing, you know. And for the men on the call, please call it out as well, because representation matters. You know, the more people who speak up about this, the more normalized it becomes. Because, you know, in actual fact, people don't mean any harm when they use those words. They just haven't been challenged.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think that's so powerful, because I think sometimes yesterday we were actually having a conversation with Emily, who's also on the call here, about the violence that is in language itself, you know, and people don't realize, like, if I am in a position of power and you're calling me chairman, you know, it's like it is a certain violence towards me, towards a woman, for you not to be able to recognize me in this position that I have worked so hard to be in, right? Yes, and I think what you said, Teresa, what was really powerful is that people think and reflect, what people think reflects what they do. And I think that's really powerful because so often, people are not reflecting on their thoughts, and that plays out in their actions. So I wanted to actually move on and ask Moono, actually, because I know you're working and you're interested in world theater also. And I don't know about a lot of people. I don't have so much of an idea of what that entails or what a working environment like that entails. So maybe you can tell us a bit more also on like the dynamics of gender in that field.
All right, so I think my mom calls me a lost soul because I'm mixed. Like I did performance theater, and I also did psychology, and like I have a lot happening. So it was always, I remember when I was doing my master's, one of my supervisors was like, "What are you doing here? Aren't you an artist or something?" I was like, "Huh, even actresses have good hobbies." And yeah, so really the in the field itself, I don't really think I have experienced a lot of gender imbalance, I can say. I think the issue that's really been there has been more of the racial dynamic of it. And also it's I can say on the professional end, on the work end, delivering the work, it's not really been there hasn't really been an imbalance gender-wise, but you find the stereotypes of, or the aggressive Black woman, or the Black woman who thinks she's too uppity, or your hair not being the right texture. I think I talked about how I had this colleague who told me that she loved everything about me except my hair. And yeah, we're really close. And then I also remember at some point I was in Finland, and I literally had people's hands in my hair. And I stopped combing it. I had to learn to be like, you know what, calm down, don't get angry about this, or don't stress about this. So that's really been the issue I've had, really, because theater has put me in a place where I end up working with people from very different backgrounds. Not only culture or ethnicity, but even racial background, different races. So you find that sometimes people are not quite aware of how to navigate the line between what counts as racist or sexist versus what counts as acceptable. And people are not willing to ask. I've had a few friends and I appreciate it when somebody just says, you know what, I'm not very clear about this, but can you educate me on this? But that's really been the biggest issue. And I've also had to learn to kind of, what can I say? Pick my battles. But also one thing I've noticed is that the biggest stress that I've really had is that the not wanting to be the angry Black woman, not wanting to be the too aggressive Black woman. And I found myself doing what I've been calling voluntary ignorance, like dumbing down what I know and taking down a lesser demeanor, or less what I would think won't intimidate the people I'm around, just so that other people are more comfortable. And at some point it was so bad, my therapist was like, "Moono, you need to express yourself more. Like, that's not normal. That's not natural." But because I always thought about it, like, okay, if I do this, then this person is gonna think that all Black women are like this. And it's been the thing that's really been a stressor, and it's something that people don't like. Even as we're talking about women and Women's Day, I realized that different groups of women have got different forms of experiences, and we also have to acknowledge that there's difference, that we experience different. I don't know, when as much as we have the same experience as women as a whole, but we also have differences in how we experience certain things because of our racial backgrounds or cultural backgrounds. So that's really been the biggest factor I've had there. It's whether you are looked at as too aggressive or looked at as a novelty. Someone's so excited, like, can I touch your skin?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really
No, thank you so much for bringing that in. And I think that's a really important discussion that we want to be having today also. So I think a lot that you're talking about is just the intersectionalities that you're experiencing, right? So I think this was also an issue that a lot of Black women especially had with some of the waves of the feminist movement, especially the first wave of the feminine movement, because it refused to acknowledge that Black women specifically would have a different experience. Disabled women would have a different experience, you know, where you have all of these intersectionalities. And it's not like we can say, oh, we're going to remove our Blackness for a second so I can be a woman now. And then later I can take my Blackness on again. And I think there's a great quote about it. And it says, all men are Black, all women are white, but some of us are brave, right? And I think that is a quote. Oh, I don't want to say the wrong person, but I think it's Audre Lorde. I think it's Audre Lorde. All right. So let's move a bit into that question that you brought up, Moono, on being Black and on being a woman in this field. So maybe I'll ask Rungano, right? Because Rungano, you're living in a society where the people around you are also Black, right? Which maybe is not the situation for other people. And I want to ask, what is your experience with that? What is your experience with race specifically, also in the environment that you're living, and how does it intersect with your gender?
So I think I'm actually lucky to be living in an environment where it's dominantly Black people. Unless you go to certain spaces, that's when you kind of feel like, oh, okay, this is weird. You rarely experience racism in comparison to sexism, right? So living in Zimbabwe, there's certain things that a man would be like, okay, but a woman shouldn't do that based on our culture. And it's like, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I be taking up space? Why shouldn't I be speaking up and allowing myself to voice my opinions just because I'm a woman? And it comes down to those cultural dynamics. So I think more on the sexism spectrum of like intersectionality, and also another component of intersectionality would be classism. So then you have women who belong to different social classes looking down. The way we perceive each other is dependent on your class. It is like, well, if we're in this fight for gender equality as women, shouldn't we all be on the same page? But you find that no, actually within like our group as women, we're fighting against each other. And it's like, it kind of defeats the purpose of wanting to be on the same page. And so to answer your question, Mareika, it's a whole lot of things coming at you at the same time. On one end, it's like, okay, but there's sexism. On the other end, it's classism. And then if you go to certain spaces, colorism can come into play as well. So if you have lighter skin, you're regarded to be more beautiful, or like men would prefer women who have lighter skin. And then it ends up being a battle. So if you have darker skin, do you want to now end up using skin lightening creams so you can fit in? So it's just, I guess it's painful in that way, but like there's so many elements that I feel like we're all just fighting in the end. And as we're fighting like that, you know, it defeats the purpose of wanting to have a gender equal society.
Yeah. And I guess, a lot of it is highlighting that, you know, for us to be able to reach this footing also, we need to also recognize our privileges in our certain senses, so that we are not also putting down those women who don't have those privileges that we have in that environment. I just want to say, Teresa, do you have something to say? Because I can see your facial expressions are very, very expressive. So if you have anything to add to that.
I'm just thinking of just kind of almost everyday scenario that I find myself in. I walk into a room or walk into a meeting, I'm the only female, I'm the only Black. Whew, okay. And I was just thinking, you know, we've got about 30 people on the call. It'll be great to see people's comments about how they deal with that. Emotionally, physically, how do you deal with that on a professional level? I know you're speaking about it on the panel, but it'd be good to get some comments in the chat as well. And for me, you know, I walk into that room, it can be intimidating and difficult for me to find my voice. And sometimes it's about, I have to take a moment and, well, it's just me. This is the situation I find myself in, and I know I know what I know, and I am who I am, and I jump in and do what I need to do. But you also find that in workplaces like that, you find sometimes you need to find a sponsor or someone who can be in your corner, who can be the person who speaks for you when you're not there. And then you kind of have to battle. I think Rungano, you mentioned, no, I think Moono, you mentioned in one of the earlier questions about the Black aggressive woman, because you've got these stereotypical images of, the Blacks being poor, about Black women being aggressive. You just have to think about all the labels that people give to Serena Williams when she's doing her thing on the court. And I remember probably just about 3 months ago, someone started a rumor about me having a big blowout and argument with a colleague female at work. And everyone who knows me know I don't swear. So, they could know straight away that, well, that isn't possible. But again, feeding into that image of the aggressive Black woman. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what others experience and how they've managed those kind of scenarios.
Yeah, and I think I think that's it's really important what you're mentioning, because especially in these societies where I think you, Teresa, Canélia, I know you're living in societies where Black people are not in the majority. And unfortunately, whenever you find yourself in those situations, you become this token person, and whatever you do suddenly represents the whole African continent, of all Black women across everywhere, And I'm really interested, actually, Canélia, on your experience, because I think you are, you were born and raised in France, right? So what was that experience like, specifically also being a young Black girl in France?
So actually, I was born in France and partially raised in France until I was 8. And then I had the chance to go to live in Cameroon for 10 years. It really shaped, I think, the way I'm in tune with my origins, with my Blackness, with my Africanness, if I may say. But still, the shaping young adult years, I spent them mostly in France and in China, mainland China. And so definitely it was a wide ride, I'm telling you, being an African woman, whether it is in France or in China, has its specificities. Whether it's professionally or personally in dating life, it's almost over, just letting you know. And also in terms, a lot of times I've heard like aggressive Black women, those type of stereotypes, they also follow you in the other way, which is like, when you are a Black woman, you're seen as a strong person, very opinionated. And when you are more soft, or when like, we all have our feelings, right? You kind of feel like you have to be that strong person all the time, and it can be very draining. As Teresa was saying, like it's very tiring to be always like the one that's really like putting everything on their shoulders. And professionally also, like with my other female peers, the salary discussions or like negotiating your salary is really different from my peers that are Asian or white. And between me, when I asked, they were like, you're greedy. And when it's them, it's like, we'll see about it. And then the next day they have their raise. So it's like, you can't really, you really have like very, very variously different perspective. On the flip side though, to put a bit of positivity in there, we talked about, yes, there's a lot of classism going on, but most of the time when I reach out to a Black woman, a lot of doors open for me. I have to recognize that we have that unspoken rule or code where when we reach out for help, we are there for each other. And that I really appreciate. And A lot of times, like when I was in difficult positions, or I wanted to learn something, there was always someone looking out for me. And so that's what I'm trying to do as well. Whenever someone comes up to me and asks me for advice or help, I try to be there, because I wish I had that help, right? So that's for me on the Blackness. And for the record, yes, it happened way too much that we touch our hair. Let's stop this madness, please.
Yes, I think Canélia, you've touched on something which is really important, which is sisterhood in a sense, you know, and I think when we talk about sisterhood, some people want to talk about it as something that's so super sentimental or something, or like I'm coming and I'm giving you a hug and things like that. And yes, in some senses, that's how sisterhood plays out. But I think in a lot of senses, it's just also the support that you're given. And I think what was we heard today before at the beginning, the reading by Emo, and that really touched on this aspect of sisterhood. And I think that's something that a lot of women and a lot of African women specifically can recognize and see themselves in. Yeah, and also I just wanted to touch on the stereotypes of, as we're moving on to the next part, is that a lot of times we have these stereotypes and it's often it's supposedly reflecting on the individual, but I think it's rather a reflection of the society, right? Well, why are you making all the Black women angry? You know, that could be also a question to be asking the society. So yeah, so let's move on. And I think all of you in the work that you're doing, in a sense, are supporting women, or you're, in a sense, breaking the bias, which is the topic that we came here to discuss. And so I want to ask you, why do you support, like on a personal level, why do you support women's empowerment and gender equality, if that is something that you feel that you do support? Moono, I'll give you the chance to speak first.
All right. For me, I support women's equality, or I can say gender equality, because we're human too. It's as simple as that. So by virtue of being human, we should have equal rights. They should be that no person should be more special than the other. Like it shouldn't be like Animal Farm, like all pigs are equal, but some are more equal than others. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. So here, all humans are equal, and none should be more equal than others. So I think that's all we're fighting for. It's not something strange, you know. It's not something unheard of or something that can't happen. It's a very, very simple ask, but it's so complicated. You know, it's weird how it's been complicated. So the reason I support it is because it's my right, you know, and it's every woman's right, you know, irrespective of their background.
Yeah, definitely. I think I want to ask Rungano also, because I know you focus specifically in gender studies and women's studies, and what does this mean to you?
I think it's because I've been given a chance to take up space in my own way, to get an education, to work, and I'm surrounded by other women who are lifting other women up. So I feel it's a way for me to help other women win. You know, I want to see women win because we deserve to win. We deserve equal opportunities. We deserve access to the things that we've been deprived of for so long. And why not? Like, why not support gender equality? Why should it be one-sided? We should all have room to take up space. And I think there's more than enough space for us to take up. It's just that there's so many men and other dominating groups that just want to keep holding power. But it's like, actually, you know what? We can all have a space. We can all have an equal share in this thing that we're fighting for. So yeah, most importantly, I want to see women win because it gives me joy. And like other people have wanted to see me win too. So it's just paying it forward. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, and I think it's really important to also highlight this issue that it is more profitable and it's more desirable for us to be living in a society that is on equal footing, that has people on equal footing. And I think that's something people don't really want to realize, you know, like, yes, of course, men are benefiting from the patriarchy, but also they are also losing from the patriarchy. And it would be much nicer for them too, I think, if we all lived in a society that was equal for everybody. I don't know if Canélia or Teresa, you wanted to chip in on that question. Feel free if you want to. Teresa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll chip in. I'll come from it from a purely capitalism perspective. So if you think of all the great inventions in history and of our time, and most of them have been by men, imagine if women always had the same opportunities as men. We're about 50% of the population. So think of all the great stuff, and if we had double the inventions, now what would our world look like today? So we're basically missing out on half the population who are as smart as the other half.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and it's yeah, exactly what we're saying. It's losing out. It's very detrimental to a society as a whole to not be lifting up women in that way. And that's kind of what we also want to highlight, I guess, through this discussion and this talk that we're having. So we are going to closely reach the end of this panel discussion so that we have time for the audience to be asking, to be also speaking. If you're in the audience and there's something that touched you and you really want to speak, that's great. So we'll have time for that just now. We have one last question, and this is something that I would really want all of the panelists to be answering. I got this question. I stole this question. Maybe I didn't steal it. I was inspired to ask this question by a podcast host of my favorite podcast, who's also a woman, called Edna Bonhomme, and the podcast is Decolonization in Action. And what she does at the end of each podcast is she asks her guests, what brings you joy in your daily life? And I think that's a really revolutionary question to be focusing on the joy that we are bringing out in our lives. It does not have to be related to your work or anything, but just I really like to know what brings you joy in your life. So I don't know who wants to start. Canélia, you've been quiet for some time.
Yeah, sure. So on a more personal level, I think Disney movies and peppermint tea. I love that. This makes my day. And on a more holistic, maybe work aspirational level, I would say that I'm very glad I've made the move very recently to push forward environmental and social change in one of the most polluting and impactful industry in the world. I'm also very proud to be part of Ladies Who Tech in Hong Kong, which really tries to bridge the gap, the gender gap in STEM industries. This is something that I'm very proud of, and I want to push forward. And so this makes me very, very happy. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. And yes, and also for sure, I'm sure the audience is also interested in knowing more and finding out more about each of your work. So you can also just always share that also in the chat box. Moono, what brings you joy in this life? I know you're a very big character.
Yeah. Well, I can say my creative side has been my saving grace. I think I would be insane, because I grew up in Africa, but what we grew up like in Botswana, and it was really tough, growing up in a foreign country and experiencing xenophobia and having to be really strong. And my sister is really darker than me, so I had to like become like the guy, like I was the son my mom never had, to make sure that I was beating down all her bullies and like and never wore a dress or anything like that until I grow old. I grew older. Like my mom had to force me to wear a dress to church, So for me, creativity, of course, and fashion, because like for creativity, I had an escape actually through writing, writing music. I talked about the failed poet because I started with poetry and like I realized the poems never ended. Like you can be writing a poem for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages and it wasn't ending. And I was like, you know what? I think music is much better. So I started writing songs earlier on. So for me, music has really been an escape. Like it's been something that I've done alongside my work as a psychologist. even my work as a psychologist, it's really about merging theater and psychology together. So working in the developmental space, I work with very young children, like how do you stimulate their development? How do you look at the emotional, social emotional development, other than the physical and other areas of development. But I've tried to merge the arts in that. So for me, it's really been helpful. It's an escape. Because you have a crazy day in the office and you want to scream, there's just times when you just want to scream. And back home, it was awesome because I was in a band and I would have this show and I'll be like rolling on the ground or screaming my lungs out for a rock song. And people like, oh my God, you're so passionate. Like, you don't know where this is coming from. So like music has been a great escape. And fashion in that I got to express myself the way I wanted to. Of course, people will say stuff like she like trying to have your afro hair on, or when I would cut my hair, like, are you going through something? And it was nice to see that when I was younger and cutting my hair or showing my natural hair, and people be like, no, you need to do your weave or something. You cannot straighten your hair. You cannot move like this. But now you actually see people moving around with their afros. I'm like, yeah, so I was on the right track. So really, that's one thing I'm very passionate about. It's been awesome for me. And also for my field in psych, I actually picked psychology because I was passionate about it. Like I never wanted to do something I didn't like. And for me, I've really been blessed because I feel that merging psychology and theater has allowed me to be a different person, to set myself aside from other people in my career. So it's given me opportunities that I never would have had if I hadn't merged the two parts that I really love about myself. So for me, that's really been awesome. And it's been nice also working with other women, and also sometimes because I worked in the NGO world at some point also. So it was nice bringing in my fellow women to work and have these teams of women just making really good differences, or you are the boss ladies, and it was awesome. I liked it. I really enjoyed that space. So that's what brings me joy.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so happy to hear that. And I guess like creativity has always been something that I feel is such a joyful experience for a lot of people. And it's so lovely for you to be able to share that with us. Teresa, I'll go on to you before we finish off with Rungano on this question.
All right. Well, what brings me joy? A couple of things. One is supporting, developing, and growing people. And bonus, if it's female, it's always awesome to be able to support another sister. And spending time with my husband. My free time, I'm mostly just at home watching TV. Well, K-drama. I've become an addict with COVID. I don't know.
Yeah. Of what?
K-drama, Korean TV shows. It's awesome. You don't have to think. And it's only one season. You don't have 15 and 20 seasons. Anyway, yeah.
Maybe I should get into it because I'm too much watching these shows where you have to focus for some time. I just want to relax.
Life is too busy, too short to complicate your downtime. Yeah.
No, that's some good advice, Teresa. Thank you for that. Rungano, what brings you joy in life?
I think I agree with what Teresa, Canélia and Moono have said. So like I love tea so much. Like tea at the end of the day is like the best thing ever. Sleeping brings me joy. And then I think another thing that I've started to do, so I started a jewelry business where I design earrings, and I think it's good. There are highs, there are lows, but the fact that I think it brings me joy in a fulfilling way that I'm able to create things that other people would want to purchase. And like, I'm kind of curious to see how far it will go. So in a way that brings me joy, but sleeping, watching series and drinking tea, and also like my circle, like spending time with people who care about me, and who I enjoy their company, whether it's my friends, whether it's my family, that also brings me joy. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. It's so nice also to hear these things. And I think a lot of times when we have these discussions, there's often a focus on the negative. There's often a focus on things that are so heavy for us to be discussing, but we also want to be able, as we said, this is a celebration of us, this is a celebration of women today. And so we want to be able to come into the space and also speak about the fact that you like watching K-drama, that's okay. So as we're moving on, we really wanted to give also the audience to be able, a chance to be able to engage with this amazing panel that we've had here today and people who've been able to share with us today. And also, I know there's lots of people in the audience, maybe there was something that came up in the conversation that really touched a note with you and you really want to share some of your thoughts on whatever that was. So please feel free if you have questions that you want to direct into the chat box, or if you just want to unmute yourself and speak, that's also allowed, and we'll be able to just have this conversation. I'm seeing already that there are some questions that are coming into the chat bots that I will ask and that I'll just read out loud. And then, maybe I'll ask Louise, maybe I'll let you speak first and then we'll move on to that. Go ahead.
Hello everyone. Good evening from Hong Kong. Yeah, thanks to the directors in African Center, they sent us the message to join it. And I must say it has been a very insightful discussion. I've not met top class women internationally like this before. And I must praise Zanti because she shared something on classism. And I think that has been a very big issue when it comes to fighting for this women empowerment and whatever. When you look at it naturally, especially those who have lived in typical African communities for long, problem among women comes from women. It doesn't come from anywhere. Hardly will men cause trouble for women. Typical African communities will be talking about childbearing, raising of families. And if you are to deep down, it is the mother-in-law who is fighting the wife. Hardly would the father-in-law come and ask the wife, why are you not giving birth? So if you are fighting and you are empowering women, I'm very happy that at such high level, Zanti raised it up because I've joined many women empowerment programs, and sorry to say, the women are biased in their discussions. They don't talk about those things. And Zanti has done so. Zanti, you have gotten a fund for yourself, and I'm glad that someone has seen this classism in the society. And I wish that as you are empowering women, you should build the unity among yourself, because if internally you are divided, any external force will push you away. We talk about fighting for women, but we forget also some cultural practices. For that one, if I should go there, it may deviate from the whole topic. And I'm very happy that you have all shared your experience. I've also been inspired. I saw someone just write that family is important, and I agree with the person. So thanks to African Center and all the panel for sharing your experiences. And then big ups to Zanti. At least we know that someone is on our side, the men who support women empowerment, but find it difficult when the internal fighting is stronger than the external fight. So Zanti, I am your new fan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luis, for that comment. And I don't know, Rungano, if you wanted to also comment on what has been said, if you have any comments on that.
Thank you, Louis. There's a lot to unpack from what you said. But I mean, I agree that if we work from the inside as well, it can make the union stronger. And like, I also do agree with what you said, like, if we get into it, it will be deviating from today's topic of breaking the biases. But thank you so much for supporting the cause. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Great. I have a message here from Emily in the chat, so I'll just read it out, and then the panelists, you can just decide who's feeling like answering. She said, "Thank you so much for organizing this, and thank you so much for everyone, for the very fascinating sharing. To create a world with a less gendered bias, and perhaps other biases too, I'm wondering, what would you say to the young generations, both male and female? What do they need to learn or unlearn, and how should they learn? So, anybody feeling like that?
I would like to just say something. I'm thinking back to that question. I'm just thinking something that maybe, is it learn or unlearn, would be something I was just writing to myself, is being a woman is not a weakness. It is not an inconvenience. It is not a crime, and it is not a disability. And I remember yesterday I was watching The Color Purple, and I was listening to Celia. She's living Mister, and she says, I'm poor, I'm a black, I might even be ugly, but dear God, I'm here, you know. So it's one thing to, it's one, an acceptance to say, for example, for the women to say, we are here, and it's not, you occupying this space is not a crime, it's not wrong. And also for our counterparts to understand that being a woman is not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something that should be mocked. You know, it's something where that should be praised, you know. Just the way a man is, you know, like, I'm a man, I can do this. You should also be like, I'm a woman, I can do this, you know. So it's not a crime. It's awesome to be a woman. I think that's one thing for me.
Thank you for that, Mona. I do think it's
Sorry, just one more thing. One thing I wanted to add. I just wanted to remember that one thing I think also people should understand is that we fighting or lobbying or talking about women's rights does not mean that we want to overthrow men. It's not a battle of trying to see who's better than the other. We just want an equal playing field. I think that's one thing to understand. So you supporting women doesn't mean you as a man are now lower than the woman. I think it's something that people should understand also.
Thank you, Mona. I saw Teresa, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Moono was saying, that, you know, what do I want to tell the younger generation about biases? That the world is better with everyone's involvement and contribution. Whether you're male, female, black, white, or you love someone who is a different gender or not, the world is better with you in there. So, you know, if that's the basis of how we are teaching our kids to grow up, and basis of the decisions you're making, I think we'll all be better for it.
Definitely. And I think, if anything, Mona, you were talking about sometimes, you know, you have all of these intersectionalities, and you were saying in the movie, she was saying, I'm all of these things, but at least I'm here, you know. And I think, if anything, from a group of women, you can really learn to be able to understand really the inequalities in the world, because they will be experiencing them. From a group of Black women, even more. From a group of queer Black women, even more. You know, all of these things keep on and they add up, and I think that's really lovely. Canélia, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I think they made a great job at like replying to the questions, but it's true that for me, it really boils down to empowerment. We were talking earlier. I think we should be empowered to do what we want to do, to change our field if we want to go from, I don't know, business to tech, to sustainability, to being an engineer, to being a financial analyst, but you actually have like a, you know, literature degree, it's okay. And I think this is the thing to unlearn, is really that you are in a box, and that you cannot just expand, you know. And similarly, I would say that one of the biggest thing I would like to do is to really teach the younger ones that you're on an equal foot, and that there is no box narrow enough for you to expand. So basically, you cannot be like, you cannot say to a guy that he will need to be like an engineer, and a girl that needs to be a nurse. You can do whatever it is that you want to do, you know, like there's no guidebook for whatever it is that is your story, that is your journey. And really, essentially, it's to be free, to be able to just embrace who you are as a person and build your own future. So, and that's beyond even being a woman or a man. It's really for any human that's in this world to really be able to get out of those boxes that we assign them when they're born or even later on in life.
Yes, for sure, for sure. I guess what you're alluding to here is that like the patriarchy is an extremely restrictive form of living. It's an extremely restrictive form of living, not only for women, but also for men. And it would be great if we could just liberate ourselves from that and move beyond that and think outside of the box and move in that way. Thank you so much for that, Canélia. So we have reached the end of the panel. I don't know if there's anybody else in the audience who's really feeling motivated to be able to say something. You can just raise your hands and I can pick on you. And if anybody has any more questions to put in the chat. Chihiro, did you want to say something?
I think there's one question in the chat.
Sorry. Did I miss it? Okay. So this is from Panache. He says, that's a great point that Moono raised in that the aim of women equality is not to overthrow men. How can we get this point across, encourage greater engagement from men to be more supportive of gender equality, and what can men do to help push the movement forward? It's a good question. Louis, I see you raise your hand. Do you want to answer that question?
Yes, please. I would like to, because there are a few men, I think myself and Innocent, so this is how we can do. Well, first, I will say the approach adapted by women in pushing the whole gender equality concept. In Ghana, I'm a Ghanaian, we have two groups of women pushing this kind of agenda. We have what you call the pepper them and then the sugar them. The pepper them are like literally pepper, very hot and spicy. They are just willing to overthrow men and show that yes, women too are powerful. And the sugar them are those who know that yes, men have a role to play in society, women have a role to play in society, but we are to encourage the men to be more supportive. And naturally, men, we have ego. I don't know if it is by nature or by the society. Men tend to have more ego. Once our ego is hurt, then we become more aggressive and defensive. But when you sugar us like that group of feminists, sorry, not feminists, but gender equality group, sugar them. When you pamper men more, they begin to be more understanding. I think those who are married may get this point better. I'm not married, so I just borrow it from their concept. So when you let the men understand by trying to not hurt our ego, it will be one of the ways to push, because naturally we want to show our masculine nature and be more bossy. But if you are to engage men to do all these things, we are able to come in terms with you to appreciate it. And then let me give a typical scenario. In Ghana, for example, if a woman comes to the market to cry that she has no money, it will be very easy for the whole group or group of men to be supportive. They will just contribute money and then give to the woman. That is what we think is okay. But when you come in with pepper them, you want to show us power, that you are also a woman and you can want to do whatever. When you are in such trouble, everybody will refer to you. Is it Berlin conference or Beijing conference? It became a very hot issue. So in starting, what I will say is that the approach is to try to let the men understand. And as Mona said and Bella said, we should encourage us to be more supportive by trying to engage us in a way which will not make it look like the men are now weak, because we are naturally egoistic. When it comes that way, we can be supportive, and it's even easy for men to support women than women supporting women. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Louis. I'm actually started a discussion here because I could see a lot of the facial reactions. So Teresa, you had already unmuted yourself, so you go ahead, start.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him out. He's putting women in stereotypes and boxes and labels as well. That's exactly what we've been talking about the past 1 hour. And then you're talking about the aggressive Black woman, exactly what we spoke about. And excusing male behavior and how women should be approaching men in a soft manner. Because obviously women need to be soft looking and soft sounding. And women and men have egos, but no, there's nothing wrong with that because that's just how they are. I'm calling you out, Luis.
Well, sorry, maybe I did not get your point because maybe I joined quite late, so I've missed some points you said. What I'm trying to say is that we are trying to
Louis,
for...
before we move on, can we hear from the other of the panelists and then see what they have to say?
Maybe I did not understand her point, Teresa. Sorry.
I don't want to like, you know, jump and be like, you know, and I think you were talking about sugar and pepper. You were very peppery. So I'm on the verge of sneezing right now. May I say that I can see that you really want, I mean, maybe you express it in a way that we don't really get it, and that's okay. I think you really want to have this female empowerment and to be that man that's really supporting of women. And so you talk about sugar and pepper. Sometimes we use pepper when sugar doesn't work, because sometimes we do try to express ourselves in a way that we try to bring everybody in, and it's sometimes not always working. And so we have to really push forward and to say like, hey, stop, this is where the line is drawn. We need to have a resolution. This is not normal that in most global, like in the world, we have to have a Women's Day because this is how dire the situation is. And then, if I may say, to tackle to bring men along, I think they need to be on the table of discussion, but they shouldn't be overpowering, but they should learn to listen and to really advocate for us. I was talking about a lot of supportive Black women. I've known very supportive Black men who really helped me out as well. And you need to be that. You need to be, and not just Black men, actually, even just men in general. You need to be that force that goes along, that when we get cut, when we talk, you replace the discussion in the center. You say, oh, Canélia, you've been cut. Can you please continue? Like Teresa, I was in a tech startup, 5 German engineer guys. This is very difficult to have a voice, okay? So as a man, I would say, this is my perspective, you need to listen and you need to push and to push women forward and to really support them and not be overbearing, but actually like see them at equal footing, because otherwise it will always be like the hot and cold type of situation. And you were talking about ego. We have egos too. Like it's very important for us to be respected, and it's very important for us to have a voice. So that's why you see some of us here like being a bit heated, right? You touched our ego a bit. But I do understand your point, but please be considerate about the fact that we do respect men and we want to be at the same level legally and even socially. Like we need to have that equal footing. And when you see those pepper women, sometimes you see it as overthrowing, but sometimes it's more like a big stop and a big like putting your foot down and being like, listen, this is enough. We need to be heard. So that's my point on this. Thank you, Luis, for your outspoken opinion. It's very interesting to have your opinion on this as a man, as a fellow man.
Both Moono and Rungano, you have your hands up. So Moono, go first, and then Rungano, I'll give you a chance to speak.
All right. So one thing I had to really think about this, because I felt like some of the comments that were given were like a minefield, and like they're like, ah! And I'm trying to look at this from a different perspective. But first and foremost, the comment I passed about women not us asking for women's rights and it not being a sign of overthrowing men is because most of the times when women are existing in this space that we call the world, you find that you having strength or showing confidence or being confident in your ideas is taken as an affront to the men. And you are expected as a woman, even if the man is wrong, especially in I don't know, collectivistic societies, or even just most of the time. But you find that even in Western cultures as well, it's definitely present. But a lot, I can only speak from the environments that I've been in. You find that your confidence is seen as an affront to who they are. So even if you're saying something from a place of knowledge, you are expected to damn yourself. I talked about me having selective ignorance because they're just certain, you get to a point where like, I'm tired of fighting. Like, so I'm gonna pretend for now like it won't hurt me, but then you realize later on it hurts you. So it's not about us sugarcoating men. It's about us, men, or I can say what I wanted to say was one, more men need to be re-educated. Like the male mindset, the re-education of the male mindset must happen through a partnership with other men who should learn to understand that a woman's confidence is not a threat to you. It's not a threat to you. The same way that one of the weird things you find is that the characters that you call aggressive or the pepper characteristic that you're identifying in the women as an affront to men, if the same characteristic is exhibited in the male person, that's a go-getter. That's an awesome guy to hang out with, But because it's manifesting in a woman whom you think it shouldn't be in, it's, oh my gosh, she should be calmer. She should be more reserved. And that's one of the issues we have because, like, for me, I grew up, like, even in work, some people be like, Moono, your problem is you want to be a man. No, I don't. I'm happy. I love being a woman. But when you experience certain communications with men, you realize, oh my God, I didn't know being a woman was this hard. So it's men need to be re-educated, and we need men to partner with this, just like Canélia said. We need a partnership. Because even as we advocate for rights, it's not going to work if we don't have a partnership with our fellow men. And it starts with the re-education. And also something that Teresa talked about, stop excusing bad behavior and stop excusing stereotypes. Even just the way we talk about racial stereotypes is the same way we look at, gender stereotypes. My role is not in the kitchen. And if I like to cook, that doesn't mean I do it because I'm a woman. Not every woman was born to give birth. If a woman chooses not to get married, she's still a woman, even if she decides not to get married. It's not that she's a difficult person. It's a choice, So one of the things we're looking at, we just want you to respect our choices, understand, respect our right to be in the same space that you're in. I think that's
Just add something is that we represent 50% of the population. You represent the other 50%. We need you to be on board. So it's not our goal to not have that like equal footing, because we know what it is to be overthrown and to be shunned. So keep it in mind when you have those interactions. Thank you.
Thanks. Rungano, I'll give you a chance to speak. Oh. Is she frozen? She's frozen, right? Okay. It's all right. I can see Sarah, you have your hands up, so maybe I'll take the comment from Sarah first, and then I will, we can move on to Rungano.
Thank you. Interesting discussions going on. And I think Moono just sort of summarized what I wanted to say, that it's all about choices. Luis, we've discussed this on our platform before. We were talking about, and he was talking about how, during the Ukrainian war, now it's like women want to eat our cake and have it, because during the war, and the women and the children were allowed to leave and the men had to fight. And we talked about, it was like, it's about choices. It was a decision that some men made, thinking that, women have to take care of the children, and that. So the whole point is about giving people choices. In those scenarios, there would be a couple that the man would be better off being the one with the child, and the woman would want to stay and fight. But it's because of these stereotypes we've created that, oh, a woman has to be at home, take care of children, do this. That is why there's this compulsion. So remove all these stereotypes and let's learn and unlearn. And I think with learning and unlearning, it's very important to start from the younger generation, because a lot of these things is the way people are socialized. So they don't see anything wrong with it. They don't actually see that, no, this is not right. So it has to start from there. And we all have a role. Women, men, we bring up our children, both boys and girls, not to have all these gender stereotypes and limitations. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I don't know if we'll have the chance to hear from Rungano, but I guess on that note, really, and I think on a really powerful note from all of the women here, we will end the panel discussion for now, and then we have a chance also to be celebrating women in a different way in watching some performances that women are going to be doing for us today. So as we're just ending this panel, I would just like to say thank you so much to the panelists and for you for coming to this session, for speaking, and for also expressing your mind, for not being afraid to take up this space. And thank you so much for entertaining us also on this lovely Sunday afternoon. So I will hand over now to Chihiro, and Chihiro will be the one who, thank you so much to the panel, and who will continue from there.
All right, thank you, Mareika, and thank you everybody for the great discussion. I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot. So now we're moving on to the performance part, and I would like to invite Amrutha to introduce herself and to talk a bit about our theme, the Break the Bias.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Amrutha. I'm actually a final year undergraduate student, currently studying in Hong Kong. In terms of like the theme Break the Bias, so I wanted to portray that in the performance itself. So I've chosen like 3 songs. The first song is called GRA, which means live your life. So the character from this song actually, she lives her life to the fullest, away from all the societal expectations, the pressure that is being put onto her just because she's a female. So yeah, so she lives her life. So that's the first song. The second song is called Badal Pe Paan Hai, so which means, oh, my feet are in the clouds. So this is also, so this song was taken from this movie called as Chak De India. So this, the story of Chak De India is, it's the first, it's, yes, after a very long time, Indian female hockey team got into the international world. They flew away from India and represented the country. So it's like a huge thing. It talks about female in sports and how it's not really part of the mainstream sports right now. And yeah, it's just a huge empowering thing. The third song is called Girls Like to Swing. It's like, yeah, girls like to have fun, and it's just a really fun song. And also it talks about like, before you actually get to know someone, before you get to know a female, instead of like, you kind of have to know what her desires are, what's her passion, and what her dreams are. So that's basically what the song talks about. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
All right, thank you, Amrutha. So Amrutha pre-recorded the dance video for us. So she's a dancer who loves the Bollywood dance and the song she just explained. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
कि कोई कांटो ना है हमको होश में कदमों को थामो ये है उड़ती जोश में बादल पे पाँव है या छूटा गाँव है अब तो भाई चल पड़ी अपनी ये नाव है जगमगाती लड़कियां ये झिलमिलाती लड़कियां जिनके दीवाने तुम भी तो हो हंसती गाती लड़कियां खिलखिलाती लड़कियां चाहती सब क्या है ये सुनो इन सब के मन इनकी धड़कन सुनो जरा सपने क्या है इन आँखों में दिल में है क्या अरमान shake it off boogie and shake yeah like to swing जरा आगे निकल के नए रंगों में ढल के अंदाज बदल के जाना नहीं है मस्ती में है जीना जीवन रस पीना ये बात हुई ना यारे अब शर्माना नहीं है
All right. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it myself. Thank you so much, Amrutha, for the
Thank you.
ones. Great. All right. So moving on. Oh, you can follow if you want to follow her on Instagram. You can search for @Amrutha Ravi, and you'll be able to reach to her IG. All right, thank you so much, Amrutha. So moving on, and it will be our last performance. I want to invite Eli Zaelo, who's a South African singer, and she'll be doing a live performance for us. So yep, I'll hand over the mic to you, Eli.
Hi, everyone. Oh, there it is. Let me just adjust a little bit. Hi, everyone. As Chihira has said, my name is Eli Zaelo. My birth name is actually Tsirufatso Mhlongo. I'm Tswana and Zulu, so I'm from South Africa. And I think for me, breaking the bias would mean allowing yourself to see yourself through your own eyes. I think a lot of the times we take up so many mixed messages from the world around us. So I think it's important for us to see ourselves through our own eyes and lenses. And I think as we're doing that, we can give ourselves permission to grow into the version that we know we could be. You know, I think when we say, be yourself, or tell your truth, it could be limiting sometimes because we feel that all that there is to us today is all that there could ever be. But it's okay to change, to evolve, to grow, and to do away with habits that don't serve you or who you're trying to be. And I think that for me, that would be breaking the bias of kind of saying that you have to be, if you being yourself means that who you are today is enough. It is enough, but it's also important to allow ourselves to grow into who we know we could be. So today, I actually heard somebody speaking about the color purple. I'm not sure who it was just now, but I'm going to be singing a song from the color purple. This is called I'm Here. Please do let me know if you could hear the audio. I don't need you to love me. Is the audio okay? I don't need you to love me. I got my sister. I can feel her now. She may not be here, but she's still mine. I know. she still loved me. I got my children, I can't hold them now. They may not be here, but they're still mine. I hope they know I still love them. Got my house, it still keep the cold out. Got my chair where my body can hold up. Got my hands doing good like they're supposed to. Showing my heart to the folks that I'm close to. Got my eyes, though they don't see us far now. They see more about how things really are now. I'm gonna take a deep breath, gonna hold my head up, gonna put my shoulders back and look you straight in the eye. I'm gonna flirt with somebody when they walk by. I'm gonna sing out, sing out. I believe I have inside of me everything that I need to live a bountiful life, and all the love alive in me. I'll stand as tall as the tallest tree, and I'm thankful for every day that I'm given. Both the easy and hard ones I'm living. But most of all, I'm thankful for loving who I really am. I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ellie.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Yeah, I think maybe everybody can unmute yourself, and I hope that to take a time to upload the two great performers, Amrutha and Ellie. And yes, let's give a round of applause for the great performance.
Beautiful, mind blown.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
It
so
was
much.
so empowering. The performance is really touching, and also I already feel empowered from both of the performance. Thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you so much, Amrutha. Great. So we are almost at the end of this program. So I just want to say thank you thank everybody who were part of this program, all the readers from panelists, the performers, and also people who joined this event. So really thank you all for joining. And if you have something, if you want to share with us what you've learned from this event, or what you are going to do to break the bias from tomorrow, maybe this is the time you can share with us. You can also type in the comment section, or feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. Whether the comment or feedback, or if you have any questions to Eli or Amrutha, you can also share. Okay. Oh, and last thing I wanted to do is to take a photo, a group photo. So maybe if you feel comfortable, you can turn on your camera. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so you can pose for the photo, the group photo. 3, 2, 1, say cheese. Okay, another one. Say cheese. Great. All right. Okay, so thank you so much for everybody for joining this event. And yeah, thanks to everybody, we could make this event happen. So yes, maybe Mareika, do you want to say that?
Right, so I think that's all. Thank you so much, Eli. I had like goosebumps. So I was listening to the music. It was so nice, and I really enjoyed the dance. I was just also, Rita, I really enjoyed the dance. So thank you so much, and thank you to our panelists and all the people who are reading for us. I think we've come to the end of the session. We're right on time. I'm so proud of us. We'll be ending this. If you feel like you have something you want to share with somebody, you can please feel free to stay in the room and chat with people here in the room, or if you want to share your contact or some of your details in the chat, feel free to do that. Other than that, I wish you a great rest of the day, a great Sunday, and a great rest of Women's History Month. And remember to support women in all of the fields that you do and in everything that you do. And Women's Month and Women's Day will be celebrated every day. Thank you so much for coming. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, Constance.
Hello, Mareika, how are you?
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Zaelo. But I was trying.
Bye, Giro. Bye, everyone.
All right.
Instagram, all of you. Bye-bye.
All right. I guess we can end the session then, right? Or
Well done, Mareika.
thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.